Hi friends, I hope you're having a lovely day and welcome to this little chatty video update. I thought I would sit down while the house is quiet. There's no one here at the moment except for myself and Rosie. And I thought maybe I would just sit down and chat about my current projects that I've been working on the past couple of weeks. So if you haven't already got yourself a nice cup of tea or coffee or a cold drink, if it's hot where you are, it's very chilly where I am, very chilly today at home. Pause now, go get yourself a lovely cup of something to sip on, and let's sit down and have a little natter together. So I have surrounded myself with, how many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 3 of my project baskets, and then one other project and one other old, very old whip. One of my very first EPP projects that I started, actually, that I discovered when I was doing some rearranging recently, and I have pulled that out because I thought I'll share it now, with the hope that, sorry, Rosie's like walking all around and checking out all my project baskets. I thought I would share that with you because I thought, now she's sniffing my tea. I thought I would share that with you because I want to start pulling out these old projects and working on them and hopefully maybe finishing some of them. So by sharing it with you, it kind of makes me feel accountable for working on that item because like us all, you know, I love starting new projects. You know, you get an idea or a new fabric comes into your stash and, you know, it's the shiny new thing, and so you start a new project, and then if you're anything like me, that project just hooks you in and captures your heart, and you just stitch on that one project. And it totally consumes you, or it does for me anyway. And then I forget about these other projects that I love. It's not that I've fallen out of love with my projects, it's just the shiny new thing. So Rosie. So yeah, so I've got that project to share with you today as well. So first I'll start with one that everything's finished. I need to do some machine sewing now, and so whenever I get to the machine sewing stage, if that's something that needs to happen, that's always a bit of a falter for me because I have to admit, I don't love getting my machine out. I don't love sitting down at the sewing machine. So yes, and I had a bit of a blunder with this project as well, but you know, that's okay. So you may remember that I started making this. I'm just gonna make sure that I hold it up in the right direction. I started making this hexie flower. It's going to be a cushion, and I pieced it all, and I did the quilting stitches going diagonally one way, and then I stopped and I got, you know, distracted like I do. And it was time. I picked it up a couple of weekends ago on a Sunday afternoon. I thought I'm going to finish doing the quilting on this so that I can get it finished, get it made. Except that I've quilted the diagonal lines going the other direction in the wrong position. So I might pause and show you a close-up of what I'm talking about. But here it is, it's finished quilted. But can you see from there maybe where I've made a little bit of a boo-boo? I'll show you now. Okay, so I've just laid it down. So the first lines of stitching I did is this one here. And so you can see I ran my diagonal line from point to point through the hexagon, and then it went along, you know, this stitch seam and through point to point along, you know, and that's how I did it. and I did it sort of, you know, this distance away from each one. So then when I sat down to quilt it going the opposite way, I don't know, I just didn't really think what I was doing. And what I've done is I've done the diagonal lines through the centers of the hexagon, going diagonally but through the center. What I should have done was go diagonally point to point this way. So what I'll do is, if I get out my, and it's going to be hard to understand or see now because the lines are going to, you know, be in the way. But what I should have done was this. So I should have gone this way through, I should have gone through the point to point of the hexagon. And so then I would have had this line going this way and this line going this way. But, you know, I didn't realize until I had completely finished quilting. And there is no way I am now going to undo all those quilting stitches because, you know, that was a lot of stitching time. But also it's going to leave a lot of holes throughout the fabric because obviously I used quite a big needle size because I was using a pearl thread. And I mean, it's not a total disaster. It's just that I've got this kind of weird off-kilter kind of rectangle pattern happening. And there's a bit of a weird, like this looks a little bit odd. If you look at the center hexes here, it would have made more sense for this line that's going through to have gone this way. So it would have had like an X like that through the center of the flowers instead of a bit of an odd shaped X. So that was my little blunder with that one, but it's finished. I'm calling it finished. Now I just need to trim up the sides, and I will make cut out the fabric for the back. I'm going to do just a simple pillow back, so I don't want to have to put any zippers in, and get that stitched up. And then I'm going to put like a binding around the edge, I think, just to finish it off. But yeah, but I am happy to have finished quilting it at least. So the next project I thought I would share with you is my Connecting Hearts jewel quilt, which is part of a very carefree sew along that I'm currently running on social media at the moment, and we are making scrappy jewel heart quilts. So I've got my basket here and my quilt. So in my basket, I like to keep all the things that I need for this project. So I've got my little zippy bag, which has some cut out fabric jewels. And then I've got some of my fabric strips that are ready if I need to cut more out. So I keep that in a handy little Ziploc bag. And then I've got my 2 tins. So in the little tin, I keep my just single jewels, because when you start squaring off, you do need to add just single little jewels. I've got my papers that I've taken out as I've been stitching, so they're ready to baste. And then when I feel too tired to stitch but I still want to be productive, that's when I like to do my basting or cutting out fabric. So once I gather, a decent little handful of paper templates, then what I'll do is I'll I'll sit down and I'll baste, and I'll put little stacks of basted pairs in this tin, ready to then stitch together when I feel not tired to stitch. So that's the little tin. And then in my big heart tin are all my pre-made hearts. So they're all my hearts ready to go, ready to be stitched in. I love keeping my projects like this because I do like to romanticize stitching and daily things, because it just brings a little bit of joy and peace and happiness and beauty to my day. So, you know, it just makes me so happy to see all these pretty hearts in this, you know, cake tin, which I found these 2 cake tins. I think they were like $2 each from my local charity shop. And they're just perfect to store a project in. And, you know, what's more fitting than a heart tin for my heart jewels? So they sit in here in my basket, and then my fabric sits there, and then my quilt sits on top. And then, you know, when I'm not working on my project, I set out my basket out on the table in my sewing room or upstairs on my little sewing desk up there, and it's just lovely to look at, and it just makes me feel happy. And that's why we do this, isn't it? So here is my heart quilt so far. Am I making sure that yes, it's up the right way. So I use this little bird heart block as my direction. So this is the way that makes me know which way I'm holding it up is the right way. So here's my heart quilt. So it's getting quite big now. It's getting quite wide. So a lot of people on Instagram have asked me how I go about piecing my hearts together, if I'm making strips and then stitching the strips together, or if I'm just going about it randomly. And random is definitely the way that I tend to do most things. I'm very organic. I don't really stitch in lines and then stitch those lines together. I start with one heart, and then I added hearts around that one, and then I kept going around and around. So I'm a bit more organic in that I just piece around sort of in a circular motion. And I do that until I get to a certain point, which I'm at now, which is now what I'm doing is I will stitch hearts across the top. So I'll add hearts and stitch them all across the top until I get to one side. And then I will add hearts going down the side edge, and then I'll get to the bottom, and then I'll add hearts going all the way along the bottom to the other side, and then I'll come up this side with hearts. And this is why they're all like loose and floppy, because I don't sort of connect them until I come back around to add the next lot of hearts. So they're a bit loose and like kind of not fully connected on the edge, but that's okay. And then I stitch up here, and then I just keep going around like that. So I just keep working my way around the quilt. I'm going to do that until I get it to the width that I want it to be. And I'm thinking of making this single bed size, because I may gift this to Matilda when it's finished for her bed. So I want it to be single bed size, which it probably would almost lie flat across her bed now. I'll have to take it into her bedroom and see how much more I need to make it, but I want it to sort of fall, not all the way down the sides of the bed, but a little bit down the bed. So probably a little bit ways to go yet, but once I've got it to the width, I'll stop adding to the sides, and I will just be adding to the top and the bottom row, and I'll just work my way up and work my way down the quilt, just going across in rows like that. But I love working on this quilt. I love all the fabrics. They're just so pretty. There's some vintage fabrics in here. There's new fabrics. Some of these fabrics are in my shop. Some are fabrics I've had for ages. There's vintage sheets fabrics in here. This yellow one is a vintage sheet, as is this one. There's some Liberty in here. Some of the old sort of, I call them vintage because they're sort of from the 80s, fabrics that my mum gave me in here, but it's all very soft and pretty, lots of florals, little ginghams and stripes. And you can see that as I mentioned before, I take my papers out as I go because then I can reuse them. And as you start getting, as your quilt top starts getting quite big, having all those papers like left inside makes it very heavy to hold and stitch, which I don't like, because then I feel like I'm putting strain on my wrists as I stitch. So I always remove my papers. But yeah, so it's looking very pretty. I'm very happy with it. And it definitely brings me a lot of joy to stitch on this one. Okay, so I thought while you're with me, I would bring the quilt up to Matilda's room to see how much more I needed to do on it. And you know what? I think I'm almost there in terms of the width. So just got it sitting on the top here, and it's just sitting on the top there. And so down the side, actually it goes down pretty much to there. So I don't think, got to imagine that, because her bed's against the wall, it's hard to tuck things in, but if I was to bring it up just a little bit, because it's only going to just sort of be a quilt topper. So I sort of said that it was going to hang down maybe that much on the side. That means if I straighten it out, it's pretty much going to hang down almost the same on the other side. So I think what I might do is square off one side. So maybe I'll square off this side. And when I say square off, what I'll do is I'll decide that, say, this one and this one are going to be, this is going to be the edge. And then then I know that I need to put another full heart here, and I need to put another just single jewel here and a single jewel here, possibly one here and one here, so that I get this line here is going to be the trim line, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to go past this one or this one in terms of adding jewels and hearts. And then that will be my edge. And then I can work out if I need to do any more onto that edge, or if I can just start squaring it off. But I'm glad I brought it up, because I have a habit of making things too big. If you've ever seen some of my crochet blankets, I always make them too wide or not wide enough and too long. So if you are making something like this, it's always good to periodically bring it, lay it down on the bed that you want it to go on and see how it looks. Because, you know, I would have just kept going, oh, just add some more hearts down the sides, and it would have just been too wide. And then I've got more, and then because I have to go up and down, then I'm just adding more hearts than I really need to. So I'm glad I brought it up. And I think maybe I might need just maybe 2 more rows just on that side, and then I think I'm going to call it done in terms of width. So yeah, but I think it'll look really pretty in her room. I think she'll really love it. This is a quilt that I made a long time ago. It's got some Amy Butler fabrics in it. This is one that I had for sale in my old shop. I used to take it around to markets, never found a home for it, so now Tilly has it and she really likes it. So there we go. Yeah, I think she's really going to love it. So this week I pulled out my Skip Around the Garden quilt to try and finish attaching. I had one last row of blocks to attach, and now I only have one block to attach. So this is the last block that is going to go into it. And again, I've been keeping it all in my basket. I've got all my templates, the diamonds that I need to connect to the blocks, and the little triangles are in here, and then all my leftover hexies, because once I've finished piecing the full blocks, then I need to start making the side half blocks and the little blocks that will square it off across the bottom and the top. So I've still got lots of hexies that I can use for that in my basket. And my last block, that's going to go on, and then the quilt is hanging up behind me. Just get it down. So I'm really happy I decided to piece the blocks together with the white diamonds and triangles going around them to connect all the pathways. So I really love this quilt, and there are a lot of people very keen for the pattern, so I am going to start working on the pattern soon. So, but it's been really fun to work on there. It's a really fun block to create, and the whole where this quilt started was I had a hankering to start a new scrappy quilt project, because my hexie one is nearing, I think, completion in terms of how big I want to make it. It's almost at that size, so I'll have to stop adding hexagons to it soon. So I was like, I'm not going to have a comfort scrappy project to work on. And since then now I have 2. So anyway, but I thought I really was thinking of doing something with squares. I had squares in my mind. I wanted to make a quilt with squares, and I love the trip around the world kind of idea where you know, there's some that are less scrappy and some that are really scrappy, and I liked the really scrappy ones where you sort of had a square in the center, and then you might have 4 squares going around it, and then you might have one row of different color fabrics, and then the next row is a different color, and the next row is a different, and the next one's different, working a way around. And then there was usually a plain colored or a single color that then connects all these square blocks together. And so I had in my mind that I was thinking of doing that. And then when I was working on the Granny's Flower Patch quilt, and I had all these beautiful bright pastel-y kind of fabrics in my basket, I had all these hexies, because I always based more hexies than I need. And I was working on one of these flowers, and I had it laid out in my lap one night, and it just came to me. I was like, well, what if I did, and I started with this block. This one here is the one that started it all. So I thought, what if I did the hexie flower with 3 petals in 3 of the petals in different fabrics, and then around that I did, 2 different fabrics, and then around that I did, 3 different fabrics. And that's how I sort of came up with this kind of scrappy flower block. And then once I made that first one, I was like, oh, I love this. This is really cool. This reminds me of a trip around the world, square block. And then I thought I've got to make more of these. So then I started to make more, and I thought, what if I moved that central flower around the flower block itself? So then I started sort of positioning that central flower up to the side, or to this side, or to this up here. And so all the blocks are slightly, some are the same sort of pattern, but I started to move that block around and created these, you know, these different little patches. So then I did start calling it my trip around the garden quilt. I thought I will name it differently. And because I'm creating hexie flowers and I love gardens and I love gardening, I thought, well, I've got to incorporate that into the name. So I turned it to Trip Around the Garden Quilt. But then I thought, you don't really trip around the garden. I mean, sometimes you do, trip over a rock or a log. But I thought I'll call it Skip Around the Garden, because I'm more inclined to go skipping around my garden, or the kids will go skipping around the garden than tripping around the garden. And so the idea is that, you know, each of the flower blocks could represent a flower bed with the different plants intermingling, the different flowers intermingling, and then the white diamonds are sort of like the pathways around the garden. So yes, that's my Skip Around the Garden quilt. And it's really fun to work on this one. And hopefully, I can't give a definite date or time when a pattern will be forthcoming, but I am going to start drawing up the blocks on the computer, and I'm going to start getting things rolling with this one. And hopefully once I've finished mine and the sample quilt, it won't be too much longer before I'll be able to release the pattern. I'm going to hand quilt it though, so that may take a little bit of time. But I really enjoy hand quilting, and I think when you hand piece a quilt, especially a quilt like this, which has got a lot of hand piecing in it, I just feel like it's the right thing to do to then hand quilt it. So I'll have to work out how I'm going to do that. But yeah, so that's Skip Around the Garden. This one definitely brings a lot of joy. So the next project I thought I'd share is a kind of a new project that I started, and I must be in my jewel era because I've been having a lot of fun with jewels, and this is one of 2 new quilt projects that I've started. So the other one I haven't started yet, but I have an idea for it in my head, and it involves jewels. And so does this one. So once again, I've got it in a basket, and this basket is identical to this one. I picked these 2 baskets up from my local salvo stores on like not at the same time, completely like weeks, even potentially months apart, and they're exactly the same basket, but you know, cannot have too many baskets. I love them for my projects. And then I've got a basket within a basket. So I also picked up this basket at my local thrift shop, salvo store. So this is my tea. It hasn't got, its working name at the moment is just Jewel Star Flower Quilt. It doesn't have an actual name yet, but I've got my Ziplocky bag with my jewels ready to be basted in there. And then in this basket, I've got my fabric strips ready to cut. And then in here I have my basted jewels, and then my basted centers, hexie centers, and I've basted all of these diamonds because these are going to connect the flower blocks. So that's all in that little basket, which is just the perfect size. And then for this particular quilt, I decided to construct it a little bit different, just only in that I'm using a different thread. So normally when I do my English paper piecing, my go-to thread is always the Superior Threads bottom line in colour Statue, which is a really lovely neutral thread. But for this project, I thought I would do something different, and I've actually been using the Wonderful Confetti cotton thread, which is a 50 weight thread, and I've been using the colors from the Ice Pastels and the Macaroons packs, which I do have these in my shop. They're really lovely pastel colors, and I've been stitching my blocks together with those, and I've been color matching my threads. So I've been color matching my thread to the jewel fabrics, and then in my basket I've got all of the ones that I've made so far. So got these stack here have been completely pieced. Their sides seem to be pieced as well, so they're ready for, so that I can start attaching the diamonds to them. And then in here are all my other, hopefully I'm showing that. In here are all of my other blocks that I've made. So I'll pull one out. So yeah, so I'm doing the hexie center, and then I'm doing the petals, and then the diamonds. The diamonds will be pieced in like this, and then the next flower will go like that. Yeah, so it's going to be like that. So I'm using fabrics from my stash. I always use fabrics from my stash. There are some fabrics in here that I have in my shop. So let's see, I've got, so I'm using the Bloomberry fabrics that I have in my shop, which are these ones. And this is where the whole quilt started, because I wanted to make a quilt using these fabrics that I had in my shop. So this is the Riley Blake Bloomberry fabric. So there's two ginghams, this dusty pink and this sort of citric yellow color. Then there's this little rose pattern, and then you've got these two little ditzy floral ones. And then I'm also using, which is in my shop, if I can find one here, the Eden Strawberries, which I love this fabric. The pink in this is just the perfect strawberry pink. And then I'm just using a whole heap of other fabrics. So when I was at the Blue Mountains Quilt show, I picked up a group of fabrics, and when I picked them out, I think that was one of them too. When I picked them out, I was like, these will look really pretty together. I think, what else was? Some of these ones as well. I picked out that one. And I think I picked out this one. So I had in my hand these fabrics. So I had these kind of orangey colors, this pink one, and then I had pulled out these blues and this brown, sort of a russet brown color one. I think I had pulled this one out anyway. So I was walking around with these in my hand. They were just little little pieces. And I was like, oh, I really like those together. And I was like, that was the start of a fabric pool. And so I purchased all of them. And then I came home and I was like, okay, so what else do I have in my stash that I can add to these? So then I went through my stash, and that's when I then pulled out things like this little low volume, these two low volumes, which I thought looked really nice. And then, I said, well, I need some more pinks and yellows to go with it as well. So I had this poppy cotton one, again strawberries, and this yellow poppy cotton one, which worked. And then I had like these two pink ones. Do two different sort of pinks, but they work, I think they work really well with the other pinks. And then I also pulled out, I had these old Tilda ones. So that's sort of how I form a quilt pool. It usually starts with a handful of fabrics that I've either recently purchased, or it starts with one fabric, and then I pull out the colors in that one fabric, and I then go to my fabric stash and I pull other fabrics of those colors, if that makes sense. So with this one, I had those ones that I had found, and then I had the idea in my head that I wanted to use those bloomberry ones, and they just worked perfectly with these fabrics that I had bought. And so then I added more from my stash, and then there are a few other fabrics that I want to pull into it as well, because this quilt I want to be not fully queen size, but I want it to at least be a quilt, a topper quilt that will sit on my queen bed. So normally when I'm making quilts, I tend to make them sort of just small lap size quilts, but this quilt I've decided is going to be a big quilt, which is unusual for me. Don't often make very big quilts because of the quilting, but again, I'll quilt it by hand, because I think that's just the way that I'm going to tend to go now. With all my EPP quilts, at least, will be quilted by hand. So that's my my jewel star flower quilt. So I'm gonna have to come up with a better name. And then I think this color palette is perfect for this time of season, because we've just come out of autumn and we're just starting into winter, and I think this is a perfect autumn to winter color palette without it being like cold and dreary. I think it's really a really pretty group of fabric, a group of colors. So yeah, and they just look really lovely together in their basket. So that's that project. And then everything gets packed up nice and tidy into my basket. So, and then I can take that anywhere I go. So the last project that I have to share is my project of old. So let's see in this plastic sleeve. And like I mentioned at the start, this is a project that is one of the very first projects that I started when I started doing English paper piecing. And this is, I drew up a design myself, and whether or not it sticks to this design I haven't decided yet, but this is where I started. And this is what I've got done so far. And you can see this is, you can tell this is a very old project from when I first started, because I was thread basting my papers, and I was using, it looks to be a cotton thread. This is definitely not the thread that I use now to stitch, but this is what I've done so far. It's very crumpled, and but it's using these lovely sort of shabby chic kind of colors, the yellows and blues. And then in here I've got the flowers. So I've got my little, got some flowers made up as well. And I've got lots of basted hexies ready to go. These are 1/2 inch, and then I've even got some of the fabrics that I am using, the pinks, cut into strips, ready to make into the flowers. So now I have to decide what I'm going to do with this and how I'm actually going to finish it. I don't know that I want to make it into this quilt anymore. So I don't know. I could, I suppose. Maybe. So I just need to have a think about what I'm going to do with this. It's very pretty. Very pretty fabrics in it. There are two different, one's a sort of, or is it just the paper that's doing that? I feel like there's two different creamy off-white fabrics going on here. And I definitely probably don't have any more of that. So whatever I add on now to this, if I add anything more onto it, it's going to have to be something totally different, because I don't have that fabric anymore. I think it's just looking like that because of the paper behind it, but anyway. So, yeah. What do you think I should do? Should I carry on and do something very like this? So obviously I had intended to applique this diamond onto, I'm guessing, just plain fabric. And then I've got a little border, and then I was going to do the flowers on, applique them onto a border, and then machine piece this together. I don't know what size I was thinking that this was going to turn out to be. So yeah, but I thought I'd share that with you, and I'm going to have a little ponder and a think about what I'm going to do. I don't think I'll have enough fabric left to do what I intended to do, so I probably will have to add some other fabrics into this, which is not a problem. I've got plenty of fabrics that will look nice, but it's just deciding what this becomes. Or do I just finish this as it is, and this becomes just a little centerpiece for the table? Do I just finish this just like this? Because that looks really, that would be really pretty just in the center of a table with, you know, tea sets sitting on it. Or do I add something, more paper piece in here and square it off? What do you think I should do? Let me know in the comments. Give me your ideas. So that's, yeah, so that's that project. It'd be nice to finish it. Nice to finish something that is very old, a very old whip. So So I thought I would just finish off this chatty video little catch up with some shop news. So I've got some new fabrics coming this week and next week that will be hitting the shop. The Tilda Creating Memories fabric, I'm going to have some of the bundles in my shop. They go in on Friday, I think. I think it is Friday is the launch date. 15th, Saturday. So Saturday the 15th of June. I'll have the Tilda Creating Memories fabrics in the shop. I'm also waiting on my shipment of the Liberty Bridgerton fabrics. I haven't been able to get them all, but I picked out, I think, 5 of my favorites. Don't you knock my tea's up there, sorry. So I picked out 5 of my absolute favorites from the Liberty Bridgerton collaboration. So they'll be in my shop next week. I don't think I'm going to get them until next week. So they'll be up in the shop next week. And then I've just put 2 other fabric orders in that should be coming. So there's going to be lots of fabric coming to the shop over the next few months. I've got quite a few orders in the works. So that's exciting. I love adding fabric to my shop. Then next week is my next show. So next Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So that is I've got my diary in front of me. So the 21st to 23rd of June, I'll be at Craft Alive Hawkesbury. So I'll be down there with my shop with all my fabrics and patterns and threads and paper templates and bits and pieces. So you'll be able to come down there and see me there. Then I have a week off. And then I will be at the Sydney Quilt and Craft Fair, which is running from the 3rd to the 6th of July. So Wednesday through to Saturday. So I'll be there. I'm not going to have my full setup there though. I've only got one of the little first time exhibitor stands, which is only like 2 meters by like 1.5. So I'm not going to have all of my product there, but I will be bringing my paper template range, my patterns and kits, and then hopefully I will have, sorry, I'm about to get up and answer the doorbell. I've got a delivery. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I had a delivery and look what came. Look, it's an apple teapot. Isn't that just, oh, I love it. I found this on Facebook Marketplace, $10. And it's perfect. There's no chips in it at all. Oh, I just love it. I have a thing for fruit. Apples, strawberries, lemons, peaches. Anyway, I can't wait to make a cup of tea with that. So anyway, back to what I was talking about. So I was talking about the Sydney Quilt and Craft Fair. So yeah, I've got a very small stand. So I'll only have my papers, patterns and kits, like my go-to tools for EPP, and I'm going to try and squeeze on some of my fabric and threads if I can. But and my store neighbour is Beck from Sobe Curated in Newcastle. So she's going to be right next door to me. We booked our stalls at the same time and we asked to be next to each other so that we could help each other on our stalls. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It'll be my first time there. And yeah, so if you're going to be in Sydney between what day did I say it was? The 2nd or the 3rd? The 3rd and the 6th, yeah, do come and say hi to me there. And then in other shop news, so a couple of weekends ago now, I released the Granny's Flower Patch quilt, which is the one that's behind me. So you can now get this pattern in the shop. You can get it as a PDF or a printed booklet, and you can get a kit to make this size quilt. And also up in my shop is my Miss Leela's Guide to English Paper Piecing, which is my digital guidebook. It's a digital PDF download. It's very comprehensive. There is, I think it's over 80 pages in there, and it's all of my tips and tricks and all the techniques that I have learnt and that I use in my English paper piecing. So that's in the shop now, along with all of my paper templates and my patterns and kits and the fabric and threads and all the notions and tools that I use for EPP are all there. So that's my little shop update. I have one more piece of shop news, and that is that I am participating in the next Makers Bundle, which is all English paper piecing projects. So the Makers Bundle is run by Lauren of Molly and Mama and Nick from Craftapalooza. And I'm participating in their next bundle, which the bundle is available from the 15th of August to the 20th of August. So open for a very limited time, and this is 2024. And there are a whole host of EPP makers putting their patterns in. And so I thought I'd share the pattern that I'm putting in the bundle, which is going to be my jewel heart pouch that I made. So this is the pattern I'm going to put in the bundle. So I love this pouch, and I keep all my most used notions and tools in it. It's completely hand stitched. I only used my machine to sew the binding on and make the binding, but otherwise it's all hand stitched. I hand stitched the binding down and then I hand stitched up these sides, so you don't need to use the machine very much at all. But that's the pattern that I'm going to put in the bundle. So make sure you look out for that, and if you follow me along on social media, I'll post more about the Makers Bundle there. And also be sure to sign up for my Slow Stitching Journal, which is my newsletter, my email newsletter that comes straight into your inbox. And in that newsletter, I share all that's happening in my shop, what patterns I'm working on. There's, I share what I'm just working on in general, what I'm stitching, what's happening in the garden, what adventures I'm going on, and I like to share other people that are inspiring me with their makes. So definitely sign up for my newsletter because it's a great way to stay in touch with me and know what's happening and going on. So, and there'll be more information about the Makers Bundle in the newsletter. So yeah, so that's coming in August. So that's all I have to share with you in this little chatty catch-up video. I hope you've enjoyed seeing the projects that I'm currently working on. Of course, this isn't all of my projects that I'm working on, but it's what I've been working on the most lately. And I look forward to doing some more catch-up videos like this with you. The next video after this that's going to probably go up on my channel will be the Granny's Flower Patch Quilt making of video, which isn't a tutorial video, but it's just going to be a video of just the little processes and the journey that I went through making that quilt. So that video will be coming soon. And as always, you can chat and follow along with my slow stitching journey on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also find me on Pinterest, and then there's my website and blog as well, which is themakerstash.com. All the links for all those things, newsletter sign up, they will all be in the description box below. I'd love it if you would like and subscribe. That just helps grow my channel, helps more slow stitchers find us here in this little community. And it's been wonderful just to chat to you today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, put them in the comment box down below or hit me up on Instagram. And I hope to see you soon. Happy stitching, everyone.